All right. Hello, everyone. My clock says 8 o'clock, so I want to go ahead and get started. Um, can everybody hear me okay? Yeah, hi. Okay, thanks. um, my name is Brittany Tony, and welcome to What Are Core Words Anyway? Let me help you get started, and this is part 2. If for some reason you missed part 1 of this webinar, do not worry. We post our videos on our YouTube channel, Saltillo brand YouTube channel, and you can go check that out there. Or I will be doing this series again in May, May 14th and 15th in the afternoon, so you can catch part 1 there if you missed it. I'm going to go over a little bit of what we talked about today as well, just for review. But let's go ahead and get started. All right, so just some information about myself. Again, as I said, my name is Brittany Tony. I am a Saltillo consultant I am the consultant for Southern Ohio, Indiana, and Northern Kentucky, and I live in Cincinnati. So I'm so happy that you all are here tonight. Thank you for joining me in the evening. I'm hoping that for some of you this was a little bit easier with little ones, so I'm glad you're here. Some more information about myself. I joined Saltillo in December, so I'm still new. And prior to that, I was a speech pathologist working mostly with kids on the autism spectrum, and 75% of my caseload was on some type of assistive communication device. So thank you, Lisa. Lisa posted the YouTube channel there for you if you missed part 1. All right, some other information about this presentation. We are going to solely focus on Saltillo products and applications. We will not be including information regarding other related products. And I am a financial employee owner of PRC Saltillo. And I am also an ASHA member. So just some housekeeping. In addition to myself, we have Lisa. She's been kind of posting in the chat window. She is moderating for me this evening. And so if you have questions, you can chat us directly. And if not, you can also just post them in the window to everyone. We'll catch it and we'll try to answer your questions as they come in. Some of them I might miss, so I'll try to answer them if I can at the end. So some other housekeeping information, if you're not familiar with GoToTraining, there are three different ways you can join. You can join on the web, if you have a Mac computer or Windows computer, and these are what the control panels might look like depending on what version you're using. There's a way to shrink and expand the control panel. You can also find your handouts there on the materials section. And then you can, you are all muted for the presentation just to reduce background noise. And again, you can chat your questions in the chat window. And Riva, I see your question. Oh, okay. Thank you, Lisa. All right. Okay, great. So let's keep going. Okay, so as we did on Tuesday, I kind of wanted to know who is here. So I know some of your names look a little bit familiar, but I just like to know who you are. So Lisa's going to kind of chat out a poll, and if you could answer that question, that'd be awesome. I just want to know if you're a speech therapist, family member, caregiver, if you're a teacher, paraprofessional, OTPT, or other. So if you could answer that, that would be great. That just helps me kind of know how to direct what I'm talking about, and just to know about you a little bit more. Great, looks like most everybody voted, so that's awesome. Thank you so much. Okay, so looks like 40% of you are speech pathologists. And then I see 24% of you are parents. That's great. Awesome. Got some aides here, teachers, PTOT or NAT specialists. That's awesome. Thank you so much. Okay, so, all right. And then the other thing I wanted to know, Lisa's going to send out another poll. How many of you have joined, how many of you have seen part 1? So just answer that question. And again, this just helps me know so that I can kind of answer questions appropriately. Great. Okay, so it looks like 85% of you did, and then 15% did not. That's fine. Again, Lisa posted the link that you can go to if you missed it, or again, I'm doing this in May, so you can catch and register part 1 there if you want. And in May, that will, if you're an SLP in May, that will be for ASHA credit. This training is not, but in May it will be. So, all right, let's keep going. Okay, so what are our goals for today? So really, what we're gonna do first is kind of review modeling and aided language input. And then we're going to apply strategies for selecting and implementing core vocabulary with AAC. And then we're going to, I'm going to show you just some ways that you can possibly navigate word power, which is a vocabulary system on our devices to create novel phrases and sentences within different activities that we're going to talk about. So first, let's review modeling and aided language input, just for those that were not here with us on Tuesday. So aided language input, what is that? It is a research-based strategy where communication partners provide modeled input by highlighting symbols on their child's communication display as they interact verbally with their child. So we're going to kind of go over this a little bit more, again, as review. It just helps children understand what the symbols mean by modeling them in different contexts. So here on this slide, I have aided language input. We can also describe that as modeling. It kind of, I think most commonly used is modeling. So if you hear your speech pathologist say model, that's what they mean by that. Okay, so we need to model. Why is modeling important? Because we need to model the language the child's expected to learn. So if we only speak verbally to a client who is a child who's using a speech generating device, then they're not going to learn the language. So what we need to do is we need to model for them on the device so that they learn where those icons are and what those icons mean. And then that helps them develop communication. Okay. So how do we do this? Communication partners. Communication partners are so important. And what I mean by this, for those that missed on Tuesday, communication partners are anyone who interacts with the AAC user. So it could be parents, teachers, someone out in the community, even a doctor at a doctor's appointment. It can be really anyone who's interacting with that device user. So what are some common traits of communication partners? So when we talk about this, we need to be aware of what sometimes maybe we do as communication partners. And most of the time, I won't speak for everyone, but I've been guilty of these myself in the past, that we take most of the turns. We ask mostly yes and no questions. We frequently interrupt the device user. We focus on the technology versus the device user themselves, kind of focusing on how the device works, things like that, versus focusing on how we can teach them the communication. And then we provide limited opportunities for them to be able to communicate with us. So these are just things to be aware of, again. So what are some common traits of people who use AAC? So for people who use AAC, they tend to be more passive, with limited initiation, meaning that they often will respond to things, but they aren't readily initiating or generating language. They often know more than they can say. They respond only in obligatory context. So the context that they are able to communicate about are very specific. They communicate for a limited number of reasons, and they often use restricted grammar. So they're not using kind of all the parts of grammar that you and I would be using. So if we want to change the common traits of people who use AAC, we first need to change the communication partners. So what do I mean by that? So instead of these ways, we can try these. What if we tried to do the opposite of some of the things that we commonly see in communication partners? So we're going to look at each one of these. I'm going to kind of highlight them a little bit more. Again, not as in depth as I did in part one. So again, if you're interested in that, you can go back and watch that. So instead of taking most of the turns, we can wait and look expectantly. So what does that mean? So waiting. Typically, I've been guilty of this many a time as a speech pathologist, not waiting long enough for the device user to respond or to initiate communication, right? So if I'm communicating with somebody, I need to wait at least 10 seconds. And I think someone on the chat window on Tuesday said they wait 17 seconds, and that's great. So sometimes we just have to wait long enough for them to be able to receive what we say and then kind of come back with a response. We also want to make sure that we're looking expectantly. So we're not just sitting there twiddling our thumbs. We want to look like we are waiting for them to say something, right? So again, this can sometimes feel awkward if you're just waiting, but I tell you, it's very powerful. I have waited a minute before. I've waited 2 minutes. And sometimes for some kids, that's really what they need. And waiting is also important because we don't want the child to become prompt dependent, meaning that they require a prompt in order to say something. So, usually I use the example of using the prompt, what do you want? Or what do you want to do? So trying to switch that up too. So going back to what we should be doing, ask mostly yes and so instead of asking yes and no questions, we can ask open-ended questions. So instead of do you like it, they can say yes or no, right? Maybe we ask, what did you think about it? So then they can say how maybe they felt. It was boring or was yucky or I didn't like it versus just yes and no. Instead of interrupting, again, we need to wait and provide active feedback. So waiting, again, is extremely important, especially for those who use a AAC device. And we need to provide active feedback. So what do I mean by that? So even if they make a mistake, we want to attach meaning to the words that they said. So I use the example of this child that I was teaching pronouns to. And he was saying, I eat. So I was giving him Skittles. And he then said, you eat. Well, I took a bite of the Skittle and I ate some of his Skittles because I attached meaning to what he said. So he said, you eat. So that meant, of course, that Miss Brittany eats the Skittles, right? So that's what I did. And so then he quickly went back to his device and said, I eat, saying, Miss Brittany, you will not eat my Skittles. So again, it's just really important to provide that active feedback, even if you know that they made a mistake. Again, instead of focusing on the technology, we want to make sure that we focus on the person. What do they like? What don't they like? What motivates them to communicate? That's huge for our device users. What helps them? What are they just super excited to talk about? And some just really just love talking to people in general, but we just have to find what they're really excited to talk about to help them communicate a little better. And then lastly, all of these things that I just talked about, these provide opportunities to model. So that gives you a framework for modeling and aided language input, and that is huge for what we're going to talk about the rest of the day, evening. So just keep these in mind. So what can you use when you're modeling? So you can model directly on your child's device or your client's device. If you have another device, I always recommend that. Some students just don't respond well to you touching their property, and so that's fine. If you can, either model on their device or using another option that I've listed here, such as our companion app, which is Touch Chat by Saltillo, and that's only available on iOS devices. And then we have some low-tech versions on our website. If you go to saltillo.com and Chat Corner, we have some low-tech versions available there that you can model, such as this flipbook that I've shown. And then we also have computer emulation software, such as Chat Editor, which I'm going to talk a little bit about later in this training. So Chat Editor is only able to run on a PC unless you have Parallels or Boot Camp on a Mac. But it's a great way. It essentially has every vocabulary that you would get on a device or through the Touch Chat app. It's on a computer, and you can do lots of things with it. So those are just some ways that you can model. So when do you model? This is what we're going to talk about today. So I'm really excited about this because this is what you want to know, right? Like when do I do this? How do I do this? You told me about all these core words. What do I do with it? So really anytime during the day that you're doing something that's a daily routine. You don't want to recreate the wheel. We don't want you to create all these activities that maybe I would be doing right in my sessions, but with my clients as an SLP, but we want you to focus on what you're already doing at home and just using the language that is already there in these activities, embedded in some of these. So we're going to talk about some of these today. We're going to talk about shared reading. I'm going to show you an example of what it might look like if you're making a snack or a meal. We're going to talk about some different ways that you can incorporate core words into play. But again, it's kind of limitless. But again, just focusing on those daily routines is really the best time that you can be modeling and interacting with your child. So let's get started with that. So there are some different ways that we can help develop language for our AAC users. We're going to look at two different ways to do this evening. The first way is words first, and the second way is activity first. And our hope is that you'll create kind of a toolbox as you work on creating some of these activities or thinking about what words or activities you can incorporate core words into with your own child. So in your toolbox, I've already given you some handouts. So in the handouts, I highly recommend that you check those out because I'll be referring to them throughout the rest of the training. One of them is the choosing reasons of communication, choosing core vocabulary activity first. And then we also have a core word plan, and there are two core word plans in the handouts. One is related to a book that we're going to talk about, Going on a Bear Hunt, and the other one is blank for you to use. The one that is filled in is kind of you can use that as a guide or a model. So, okay, let's keep going. where are the handouts? Those should be in the handout section of your screen in that toolbar I showed you. There should be a drop down where it says materials, and there should be 5 things for you to download. You can also find them if for some reason you can't find them. They should be in the follow-up email that you get from after this training. So it's not super critical that you have them right now, but just so you know, I will be returning them or referring to them, sorry. Okay. All right, so let's talk about selecting words. There's 2 different ways to start. We can first talk about picking our vocabulary from word lists and different classroom vocabulary, and then apply them to those words to specific activities. Or we can start with our activities and then choose the words that make sense for those activities and apply those words to different activities. So we're going to talk about each one. So first, we are going to talk about, which I already kind of mentioned this, words first and activity first. So there's many different ways that we can start with a client using AAC. And again, you might want to consider starting with a group of words or the activity. And then, but right now we're going to talk about picking words first. So here on the left-hand side of the screen, I have some just simple words that I've picked. These are from, there's a handout. In one of the handouts, there is a list of words. And yeah, this is where I pulled that from, early developing words. So, but for right now, we're going to start with these 3: more, stop, and go. And as I think about my words, I need to be able to apply it in one activity, but I also need to think about what other activities I can apply these words to. So, can we apply the words morning meeting, or sorry, the words more and stop into morning meeting? Yes, we can. We can, during morning meeting in a preschool classroom, we might say more to tell the teacher to read more of the book, or stop. Maybe you don't like the book. Maybe you're doing a warm-up song and you don't like the music. You could say the word stop. We can also use the words stop and go, maybe during snack time. So stop, I don't like that snack, or go, meaning I want more snack. You can also use the words more, go, and stop when you're reading a book. So all of these activities that I've listed all of these words can be used in those activities. So again, thinking about, okay, how can I use these 3 words that we're focusing on this week in all of these different activities? And more, go, and stop, I can tell you, are 3 of the easiest words to apply to any activity. So if you're looking for a starting point, I would start there. Okay, so for this next thing that we're going to talk about, I just picked, this is again from your handout, first 8 words, the core vocabulary words that we can integrate across multiple activities. And this is from Gail Van Tatenhove. She is an amazing speech pathologist who did a lot of research on core words and how to use them, early developing words, with children who use AAC. So I'm going to provide an activity, and what I want you to do is, if you could, just kind of list maybe some words or phrases that you would use based on the activity that I show. So first is Play-Doh. If you want to chat in the chat window, then just say maybe what words or phrases that you could put together that go with the activity Play-Doh. Squish, all done. Yep, it's cold. Yeah. Good. Yep. Want, red, Good. Soft, more. Good. 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 I love those examples. Awesome. So, and again, if we think about those words, I love all of those words. If we're thinking about these first 8 words that are listed here, we can apply these to the next 2 activities I'm going to talk about. I see somebody put in the chat window roll. That word can definitely apply to the next activity, which is ball. So if we're thinking about these first 8 words, what are some phrases you can use just with these first 8 words? What are some phrases you can put together using the word ball? Want ball. Good. Want more. Yep. Want that. I love that. Yep. Stop ball. Good. Mine ball. Yeah. That's mine. Yep. Perfect. Okay, great. You guys are doing awesome. Thank you. Yeah, so again, with just 8 words, you can do so much. What that? Well, maybe they don't know what it is. It's a ball. Stop that. Don't take my ball. Or stop the ball from rolling. Or more that. I want that ball. All done that. All done ball. So again, just a lot of ways you can, just with 8 words, you can do so much. Okay, the next activity or toy that I have is blocks. Again, you can use a lot of these same 8 words with this activity. So if we're only focusing on these 8 words and teaching the client these 8 words, we can say so many of the same things. Want that, stop that, what that, more blocks, yes. I see a question here that was good. So how would you go about this activity? When do you model the words? That's a great question. So I think it's really important to think about doing this naturally and making sure that you don't overwhelm your child. So if you have these words in front of you, you can model whatever it is that you're saying to the child using these 8 words. So if you're saying verbally, all done that, or what that, or stop, you can do that on the device. So if I say stop with my mouth, then I'm using my finger to point to the words on the device or the low-tech board or whatever it is that you have that you're using to model those words. Or want mine, then I go to want, and then I'm pointing to the word mine as I'm saying it. I hope that makes sense. I don't necessarily, in the beginning, I don't necessarily need the child to respond to me or model the same thing. But what I have a video in a little bit that shows me kind of modeling for my daughter. She's verbal, but it's just an activity that we did together. And do you have them imitate or just you model? Very early on, that's another great question. Very early on, I really encourage you to be modeling. And as you continue to model and they start picking up the words and you model, and then maybe the next day, maybe you model a lot and then expect them to imitate 1 word. So kind of building, if that makes sense. So if you are modeling a lot in the first couple of days, especially for someone who just started on using a device, I think that's so important. And then you'll find that they want to start using it too. And kind of fading your modeling a little bit. So you can still model, but maybe next time you pause and have them try to imitate or push the buttons that you do. Should you be pushing the buttons or just pointing? You should be pushing the buttons. There's a lot of research out there about children hearing especially children on the autism spectrum, about hearing what is the input from the device and being able to then receive that and receptively understanding, so that because we want them to be hearing what it is on the device and what it sounds like, and not just your voice. I hope that makes sense. But anyway, yes, I would push on the device because a lot of the times some of the words that we're modeling aren't necessarily on the home page. So yes, you want to be pushing and not just pointing, if that makes sense. So, okay, let's keep going. All right, so now let's look at activity first. Okay, so again, this is in your handouts. Oh, I see somebody else, but pointing can encourage prompting that is hard to fade. Yes, you are correct. That's very true. Thank you for pointing that out. Pointing and pushing the buttons is hard to fade. So again, this kind of, you know, maybe a topic for a different day as far as like prompt hierarchy goes. But yes, I would first prompt by pointing or pushing the buttons.
Unmuted.
It so the child hears it while you're saying it, and then maybe you just gesture to where the word is. And I have a video later on that'll demonstrate that as well. So maybe you're not pushing it. So
can I say something?
Okay. Yeah.
So I'd like to think about it when I explain it often to parents. I think about that first year of life. A child is exposed to many, many words, and we have no expectation from that child in that first year. And they get their first words somewhere 10 months, 12 months. They've got 50 words at 18 months, but between that 12 and 18, there's only a few. And we don't keep pushing necessarily. We're modeling, we're giving them the example without requiring them to do anything. So they're hearing that word. That child says mama and dada first because they've heard it at least 365 times. So when you're looking at a device or you're looking at a low-tech board, whichever one you're using, you're modeling, that's kind of your extension of a voice, and you're showing them the connection between those words. Sometimes that you don't have to have an expectation and they get it. I can tell you one example where I modeled for a little boy. We were playing with cars and I kept modeling and modeling and modeling, and he didn't care. He kept walking around the room and he just left. And then I was talking to his mom and we were talking about strategies, and all of a sudden he comes up over to the device and he pushes fast, go fast. And, you know, of course we weren't paying attention to him. And then he kind of like rams the car into my leg because I said that, because I paid attention to him then, you know, or I wasn't paying attention and then I paid attention. So think about how we acquire language. We do a lot of talking before we have any expectation for our kids. So when you get a new device, there's that learning curve. Thanks. Sorry.
Yeah, no, thank you, Lisa. That's, yeah, I agree. I love that example. And yes, thank you. Thank you. That's awesome. Yep. Yeah. Yeah, and I have an example too of a little boy that mom said, you say he's doing so great here on his device, and he had it for like a few weeks, and you say he's doing so great here at school, and at home he's just not using it. And so I had her come in and we sat down and I just modeled for probably the first 15 minutes the word help and didn't expect him to respond. And then probably after the 10th time I said help, I waited and I didn't help him, and I waited and I waited, and he finally said it on his own because I had modeled it 10 times before. So yeah, sometimes it just takes just some modeling. Okay, so let's talk about activity first. And again, this is in your handouts. It's just another way that we can think about what core words we want to use, and thinking about the activity first versus the word. So so if I specifically have an activity in mind that I want to use, maybe I can think about what functions of communication go along with some core words. So for example, in this example, and this is in your handouts again, if we think about the activity bubbles, what are some core words that go along with requesting? What can we want, right? We can say we want bubbles. What are some core words that go along with the function? If we think, again, thinking about our functions of communication that we talked about on Tuesday, questions. So if we want to ask questions, what kind of questions can we ask that are core words? Maybe what or where are they going, right? If we think about commenting, we can say something like, uh-oh. If we think about maybe some action words, we could say something like open or pop or go. So again, it's just a different way of thinking about what words we can choose, still thinking about core words, right? But surrounding an activity and kind of these functions of communication. Again, this is just another way to look at it. So I have on the left-hand side of this chart kind of the reasons or functions of communication. So again, if I'm requesting, maybe I say play with one word. If I'm kind of above that stage, maybe I'm using 2 or 3 words, and maybe I say I play bubbles. Again, directing action, you do or go. We talked about commenting. Maybe I'm protesting and I say I'm all done or I'm finished, or just stop if they're only at the 1-word phrase level. So again, this is just kind of breaking it down a little bit more. One way I kind of, again, I think that this is probably one of my favorite things to do, is thinking about choosing core words. And if you kind of want to know where to start and are kind of overwhelmed with all of the functions of communication and choosing words that way based on activity, we can also do something what I call Give Me 5. And so what I mean by that is choosing for every one fringe word. So again, fringe words are your nouns, or in this activity, we're going to choose the word bubbles. So that's our toy or our activity. So that is our kind of our thumb, and then the rest of our fingers would be 4 core words that go along with that activity. So what are, now you can chat these in the chat window, what are just single words that go along with the word bubbles? Wet, oh, I like that one. Play up more, good. Yeah, big, oh, I like that one. Describing words, make, yeah, make bubble pop, good. Awesome. Yeah, so if we open, more, up, down, those are just words I chose. You guys did great. I love your ideas. Yes, so again, it's just a way to think about, okay, if you're kind of overwhelmed with the idea of choosing just specific words or this activity, maybe we can think of, can you think of 4 core words that go along with that one fringe word or that one activity? Okay, so activity first, reading books. So this is just another example, reading books, maybe that's our activity. What words can we choose that are core that go along with that activity that are maybe function based? So words to negate, we say don't like or all done. Maybe some action words like read. Maybe we comment on it, funny, or uh-oh, or don't like. Maybe we use some describing words like here or there. That's good, or that person in the story is bad. So again, just some different ways to think about, different words to think about this activity. Again, another way to just kind of break it down for you, we have these single core words on the left, and then on the right are just some, if you're kind of at the 2 or 3 word level, then just some different words you would use based on the function of communication, which is on the left-hand side of the chart. So if you're commenting, maybe you say like or I like it. Again, if you're protesting, I don't want, or stop. Maybe you're asking a question, you're focusing on questions. What that, or what's next? So again, just some ways to think about using that activity and surrounding some core words. Okay, so books are a great way for teaching core vocabulary. We're gonna talk a little bit more about this. We chose books just because it's natural. A lot of schools are already using books every day. So how can we break this down even more? So we can use something called a core word plan. It is just a planning document to help us focus on the subject matter of the reading. So it's more, I guess, if you want to call it a lesson plan, really. And you can use that to expand to other activities. So we're going to look at this a little bit more. So this handout, there's one that's filled out, and we're going to talk a little bit more about it. And then there's one that is also blank in your handout. So we're going to start with a book. For the purpose of this activity, we're going to use Going on a Bear Hunt. So we just chose this book because it's engaging, it's super repetitive, and I'm not necessarily going to read the whole book. Maybe I'll have just chat in the chat window. Have a lot of you read this book before, Going on a Bear Hunt? Yes. Okay. Okay. So some of you have and some of you have not. So it is by Michael Rosen and Helen Oxenberry. It is one of my favorite books. It's excellent. It's super repetitive, which is why I love it. And it has a lot of core words already built into the book. So for those of you that haven't read it, I'll just read the first page, and it's pretty repetitive from there. So we're going on a bear hunt. We're going to catch a big one. What a beautiful day. We are not scared. Oh, grass. Long, wavy grass. We can't go over it. We can't go under it. Oh no, we've got to go through it. So, and essentially from there, they encounter all of these obstacles through this bear hunt that they're going on, but all of the same words repeat. Going on a bear hunt, going to catch a big one, what a beautiful day, we are not scared, and then they come to the obstacle, they can't go over it, they can't go under it, they have to go through it. So as you can hear, there's a lot of those same words, and again, it goes on and on and on. And then at the end of the book, they meet the bear, and they go back to their house, and they jump under the covers, and they say, we're not going on a bear hunt again. So if you haven't read it, and you have a little one, I highly recommend it. It's a really good book. For sake of time, I won't read it all. So again, just to provide you with all the tools that we can, let's decide. So we're going to decide to build communication. We're going to determine the vocabulary. This is just an acronym, by the way. Determine the vocabulary, explore the vocabulary on the device, change or alter as needed, identify vocabulary with button capture and chat editor, and we're going to do practice and expand with other activities. So let's look at each one of these kind of in more detail. So we're going to also use this core word plan to help us decide. So again, determining the vocabulary is on the left-hand side, and we can pick core words based on the activity we're doing here that is used throughout the book Going on a Bear Hunt. So in the left column, we've determined the core vocabulary that's highlighted in the book. We're going to explore the words on our device and then identify the vocabulary path using chat editor software, or you can just write it down. You know, how do I get there? I go to groups, I go to nature, and then I go to grass. And then on the second page of your handout, so kind of on the back side, you're going to list the core words you chose on the first page in the far left column. It's kind of a carryover. And then as you see in the middle 3 columns, we chose practical activities that would help the device user generalize these core words from the book, as well as maybe some materials that might be needed for those activities. And again, I really encourage you, don't rethink the wheel for this. If that activity is cooking or taking a bath, let that be your activity. Don't rethink the wheel. And then we have some sample words and phrases that you can prompt or model for the device user to say, to encourage them to say those words and learn the vocabulary that you've just read through the book. Okay, so first we need to determine the vocabulary. So as we listened to the story, these were a lot of the core words that were already in the story, and all of these words are repetitive, repeated throughout the story. So these first circles, these were ones that we immediately identified. Go, because it's so common in the book. We're going on a bear hunt. Over and under and through, because again, they're repetitive in the book. And then there are also some really great core basic concepts. We can teach prepositions. So that's another reason why we chose those. We chose a word to negate, such as not. We're also choosing some words like oh no, that was in the book. It was oh in the book, but we chose oh no because oh is not on the device. We'll talk about that in a minute. And then, so this is just a way we can comment. So oh no or cool. If we want to work on some pronouns, we is in the book. I and you are not in the book, but typically when we teach pronouns, we teach I and you first, and then we'll teach the word we. So that's why we added those. Scared, we're not scared. It's a really good feeling word. Get, so instead of catch, because that's kind of a hard concept to understand for some kids, maybe we teach the word get, because that's really easy to understand. I get that. I can get that. Get that for me. So, and it's also an early developing word. And then we added some fringe words such as bear, river, grass, and mud, which are some of the obstacles that the family overcame in the book. So next we want to explore our vocabulary. So the words in red are the words we would use if it were just really basic vocabulary, either stage 1 or 2. So notice there are no fringe in those core words there, the red words that I chose. So again, if we're thinking about those stage 1 or stage 2 users, we really want them to be learning these really basic core words. So we can find the vocabulary using Word Finder on our device, or we can also use Chat Editor on a computer. So let's talk about how we might use Word Finder. So if you're not familiar, and again, there's lots of video tutorials and webinars on our website. So again, I'm not going to go into how to program your device, but we can find Word Finder on the keyboard page of your device, and you can also find it in the settings menu on your device. There's a settings menu, and you can have the Word Finder button pop up on the bottom to be on that screen. So that's just 2 ways that you can use Word Finder to find some of those core words on your device. So if you have a device in front of you, I don't know if many of you do, but if you do, you can go ahead and look for some of these words. So you can use the word Word Finder, or sorry, my words are getting out of me tonight. You can use Word Finder to find these words. What I did here is I used Chat Editor to help me find the vocabulary path on the device. So that's what I did here. And this is based off of WordPower 60 basic files. So that's why some of them only have one icon, because it's like, such as the word go is on the home page of WordPower 60 basic. I and you are on the home page, but to get to words like not or uh-oh, I have to navigate to a separate page. So for uh-oh, I have to go to the social button, and then I can find uh-oh there. So that's kind of why there's two icons for each of those. So if you want, you can explore your device. I'm going to keep going just for the sake of time, but that's just a little bit about Word Finder. So what happens if your word isn't on the device? So you have several different choices. We're going to talk about some of them. You can add the word to the system. So for example, if I was reading The Three Little Pigs with my student and the wolf was not in the vocabulary, that's an important French word that I might want to add because of that story. So I would just go ahead and add the word wolf into their system. Another choice is to change the target word to something that is already there. So for example, instead of all done, on some of our vocabularies, we don't have the word all done on the home page easily accessible. It is on the device, but finish is on the home page. So instead of all done, maybe I can say the word finish. Or as in the story, it said oh, and so we changed it to uh-oh as our word. Would you add big bad wolf? You could add big bad wolf. Yeah, Stacy, good question. You can also find another way to describe the word. So one of the examples I give here is I had a student who loved to watch Blue's Clues, but it was not on his device. And we didn't really want to add it because I wanted him to learn to describe what it was specifically for someone who may not know who Blue's Clues was, or just to give him other words, other core vocabulary words. So instead of adding Blue's Clues, we taught him to say watch blue dog. And it took him a while at first. Then first he would just say blue, and then I would model blue dog, and then eventually we got to watch blue dog. So that's just another example of maybe how you could describe what it is you're trying to get them to say. Okay, so find word doesn't seem to be working on my chat. Chat editor does not have a find word capability, I'm sorry. Okay, so for, yes, orange chip equals Dorito, I love it. Yes, perfect. Okay, for example, added mud. We added mud to the device. We're going back to going on a bear hunt. So if we go back to go on a bear hunt, we might add the word mud on the child's device because it's not there. We changed the target word catch and hunt to get. And then we added another word. We changed a word to uh-oh versus oh. And we added cool so that we could comment. Okay. So if we want to think about maybe how we can identify the words that we're using, you need a way for team members and the student to remember. So again, Chat Editor provides you a way to create a cheat sheet with the button capture tool, and I'll show you kind of where that is in a second. Or you can write down the path to get to the words. Anything that helps you and the student remember. So maybe you say describe, you go to the word describe, and then you go to scared. Sorry. Here's Chat Editor. The capture button I kind of highlighted there. You would click that, and then it's going to capture everything that you select. And what you can do with that is you can copy it to clipboard, and then you can copy and paste it into Word, and you can print it off. So that's a really easy way for you to remember what the sequences are, and it helps your child remember as well. For more on Chat Editor, you can visit our website, and there's lots of webinars on it if you're interested. So, okay, so just looking at the time, I already know that I'm probably going to go over, so I apologize. Just answering some questions up front. For any user who is not. Okay, Tara, I'm going to answer your question at the end if that's okay. Okay, so again, sorry, I probably will go over, so feel free to leave at 9 o'clock. I really apologize. Answering some questions. So, all right, so let's practice vocabulary together. Before you start reading or doing activities, practice where the words are with your students. So even before you start doing these activities, we need to practice, right? So one way I like to do this is you can write core words on note cards and use them as flashcards, just as you would for math facts. So write the core words down. You can drive cars over them. You can put them or throw them in a box. You can bounce a ball on them, kind of get that proprioceptive input. You can find them in the room, do like a scavenger hunt, just like they were doing on the bear hunt. And you can practice each word several times, alone or in sentences. So, and we also want to think about how we can expand to other activities. So again, using these same words, how can we expand those to other activities? So such as calendar time or games or crafts or apps. And I'm going to show you how I did this with my daughter. So if we think about, we use some prepositions, or I was modeling prepositions with her during a cooking activity and using some core words during a cooking activity. So in the book, Going on a Bear Hunt, there's a lot of prepositions in the book, such as over, under, through. And so for this activity, I use on a lot. So we and I are going to make ants on a log. Let's make a snack. Make a snack. Let's find the snack. I know. Right here. Gotta go to food. Snack. Good job. Let's make a snack. All right, what do we do first? We have peanut butter. What do we need to do with the peanut butter? We need to, what do we need to do? We need to put it on the celery. Okay, let's put on. Be careful. Okay. Okay, hold the celery. Yeah. Good job. Wow. The pictures in this ready already? Yep. Try be careful. Okay. And now, wow. We need to put on. So we need to put on the raisins. Can you put on the raisins? 1, let's put 3, 2. Sorry, that was my son in the background. So as you can see in the video, I was modeling for her. Again, she's verbal, so it's definitely going to be different for an AAC user. But I thought is a good way to show you how you can use the word on during a cooking activity. So I was modeling for her, pushing the button some of the time, but as you could see, sometimes I was just gesturing or more pointing and not actually pushing the buttons. I think somebody had a question about that earlier. The link to the video, Stacy, I can't believe, Lisa, I can't remember if we have it up on our website through a different activity or not.
It will,
I might have to.
It's part of the June Saltillo calendar video that it's not there yet, but it'll be up in a couple weeks.
Okay. Okay, yeah, so wait on that, Stacy, it'll be up. You all got a preview. Okay, So that's just one way. Some other ways that we can expand with some of the words that we use in the book. And again, if you have to leave, I apologize. Answering questions, I lost track of time. So expanding with other activities. So with calendar, weather time, using the words which is not to indicate that it's not a certain day of the week or it's not certain weather. Maybe you can go tell a classmate to get the picture, or you can say, uh-oh, it's raining outside. So those are just some other ways you can expand using those same words. We also want to make sure that we're focused on meaning and teaching some of these beginning words such as go, stop, more, play, in, out, awesome, and not. So using all of these words in these various activities and focusing on the meaning. So you can use the word go with all of these activities. We make the car go, we can go in and out of a door. Again, there's in and out. You can do more blocks. This is awesome and we have a party. We can stop and go, just like a traffic light, or that was awesome when that rabbit popped out of the hat. So anyway, those are just some activities ideas of words that you can use with these various activities, and making sure that we attach meaning to those words, those core words that we're teaching our students. Again, just some other activities for words that you can use with various activities. Mr. Potato Head, one of my personal favorites. Want red one, need funny thing, that's cool, or that's yucky. With blocks, we can put on, we can make it go down. For a farm, we can make them eat. So make it eat, make the cow eat, make it sleep. We can make them go in or go on, go out. Okay. Okay. So games, what are some core words that we can focus on with games? Bingo, some core words that we could use. I have that, or I need help, or I'm ready, let's go. Some fringe words, maybe specific vocabulary that we want them to use. Maybe it's just receptive. Go fish. Core words, do you have? I do, I don't get one. Some fringe words, again, some specific vocabulary that we could use. We can use low-tech pictures for that. Maybe some words that we want them to learn that are maybe academic. Candyland, another of my favorite games. I get pink, want that, don't want that. That's awesome. And then some fringe would be lollipop or ice cream. Okay. Some books. So books are an amazing, again, way that you can use core words. We can create original books. Using books that are repetitive is highly recommended. We can use photographs and turn those into books. We can rewrite books for older students or use comic strips for older students. Comic strips are great, especially for our older kids, our high school students who are using AAC. They're very interactive and have a lot of feelings in them. So those are great places to start too. We can focus on core through role playing. If we play store or restaurant, so what do you have? Where is that? Maybe you have photos of those specific items or specific menu items programmed into the device. Or you have, or sorry, instead of programmed into the device, you have photos of those items. Maybe for restaurant, you want to eat, want to drink. I like that, I don't like that. Or thank you, is teaching them some of those social words like thank you or hello. So remember, strategies for language development. I know that was kind of a whirlwind, but we identified some words using these two methods, words first and activity first, and just helping you choose which core words that you might want to teach based on if you want to pick words first or if you want to pick the activity first, and use the method that works best for you. Think about the carryover. We want to make sure that the words we're choosing are not only specific to that activity, but we're choosing core words that are specific, that can be used for any activity. And we want to make sure that we refer back to our reasons for communication. and that we can keep growing their communication. So if you want to check out more ways, this video isn't coming up, but I can show you. If you want to check out more ways you can use core words at home, check out the YouTube channel. It's Explore AAC. It's all one word. If you put a space in the middle, it won't work. But Explore AAC is a PRC Saltillo website, and we have a YouTube channel. And it is, a lot of consultants just, I'm going to try to, if I can, see if it'll let me, oops. We have a lot of, we just created a lot of videos, a lot of the consultants based on core words and how you can use them at home. So really recommend you check it out. Here's just kind of a highlight of my son and I. There are lots of simple ways to model and teach language during daily routines at home. We'd like to show you some ways that you can use the word more and all done. We can use the word more, and all done to talk about puzzles. I have 4 puzzles. More puzzles. 1 more piece. I have 1 more. Good job. 1 more. And here we are. All done. All done. Okay, that was just a video to show you what that'll look like, and then I show you some other ways that you can use the words more and all done. Oops, sorry. But just so you can see what that, how you can use those words in your everyday life at home. So I highly recommend you check it out. Okay, I know we're over on time, and I apologize kind of answering questions during the presentation. Are there any questions that I did not answer? I'm going to go up in the chat window to make sure. See. And again, thank you for joining us. I'm looking through the chat window here. Thank you so much, especially in the evening. I hope this was helpful for you. I know it's kind of a whirlwind. Feel free to email me. It was a lot of information, but I'm happy to help answer any other questions if you have them. I think I saw a question up here from Tara. I don't know if Tara's still on. I think, oh, I see her. Okay. For an AAC user who is not yet independent, how many core words would you recommend targeting at one time? That's really a difficult question to answer, Tara, because I don't know your child. However, I really recommend that you would talk to your SLP, your child's speech pathologist. But typically, I'll just give you an idea. For someone who is first learning language and is at one word stage 1 of language that we talked about on Tuesday, just first learning their device, I typically recommend targeting 1 to 2 words at a time. So just to try to not overwhelm them. And again, it depends on the child. If they're really young and they are really not attentive, that's really why I recommend 1 or 2. But it really depends on the child. I hope that helped answer your question. But typically, if it's a stage 1, single words, I really recommend just 1 or 2 at a time. And then as they start to get the handle on those, then you can increase that and kind of increase their language that way. Is there an easy way to say all done when I search done on Word Finder, nothing shows up? Okay, Chandra, if you're still on, do you know what vocabulary your child is using? That might help me. Oh, 42 basic. So that is actually the one. I think you have to select all done, or in Word Finder you have to say all done. But with WordPower 42 basic, that's the one I was referring to. That does not have all done on the home page. So WordPower 60 basic does. If you hit all, it'll done will come up right after it. And you can say all done. But for WordPower 42 basic, I use the word finish. And so it's just another way you can say all done, or you can use the word stop. So either finish or done is what I like to use if all done is not in there. Do I think 60 is too many words? Not necessarily, but again, I don't know your child, so I would recommend talking to your speech pathologist about that to see how many words she thinks he could handle. I always like to start out with more and then kind of hide some if necessary, but again, I would reach out to your speech pathologist. I saw a question. Is there any training on how to use my scenes aspect of touch chat? I don't think specifically, June, if you're on, maybe you know Lisa better than I do.
So you're talking about creating visual scenes or the visual scenes that are already programmed into the vocabularies? So there are some visual scenes, and they're not true visual scenes within the vocabulary, creating new ones. So if you, customizing Touch Chat Part 2, I believe has some visual scenes in there. So you're interested in creating something where you would have hotspots. You have a visual scene. You take a picture of your family and you want to have hotspots that say mom, dad, grandma, grandpa when you touch on the people, for example. And that would be what creating a visual scene from scratch would be.
Okay, thank you, Lisa. Yeah. Let me see if there's any other questions here that I missed. I think somebody, I don't know if they're still on. Somebody had a question about, maybe you answered it, Lisa, about the color coding in the vocabulary.
I did not answer that, and I didn't see it.
Okay, so I don't know where that was. I saw it, and then I just kind of skimmed over it. I don't know if that person is still on, but if you are, oh yes, oh hello, Tammy. Okay, great. So yes, so you were talking about how was it color coded in the vocabulary system? It is color coded based on the types of words that are in there. So for example, and I don't have my device readily available. Oh, wait, right here. Okay, so the yellow words are your pronouns, the green words are more your action words, and then some of those blue words are more your prepositions. And then, you know, again, depending on what vocabulary they're using, maybe the question words come up in a different color. So that's kind of how it's organized from left to right. Yes, purple is adjectives or descriptors. Yep. Yes, and that, for your information, I learned this way back in the day in graduate school. That's called a Fitzgerald key. I learned doing a university presentation that they don't really teach that anymore, But anyway, that's what it's called if you're interested in what that is. It's called the Fitzgerald key. That's how they used to organize back in the day, like low-tech boards and things like that. So I'll type it. Fitzgerald. Yep. Yes. Yep. That's it with a Z. Yes. Yep. That's what that is. And ours is a modified Fitzgerald key on our devices. Just a way to help us organize it and draw our attention to the different words. So another thing, if you guys are still on and wanting to hear a tip about core words, since you mentioned colors, Tammy, another thing that I like to do, especially with students who are just learning core words and where they're located on their device, you can change the color of any background of the icons on the devices. And I will refer you to a webinar on our website about how to do that. Customizing your chat device would be a good one for some basic programming, but you can change the background color of any icon. And when I'm teaching core words, I make it a really bright color that the student can recognize. So it just draws attention to that core word. So if I want to work on the word go, maybe I make it a really bright green, or maybe if I want them to learn the words stop and go at the same time, I'll make go a really bright green, and I might change the red because right now it's in green on our devices, but you can change the word, the background color of the word stop to like a red color, and that way that can draw attention to them a little bit more. So you can do that at home too. It doesn't have to be your speech pathologist that does that. You can do it. So just a little tip about colors.
So I've done that with borders. If I had 5 target words, I've often done a border. So I change the border color to like a blue, and I'll make it a little bit wider. And so then I fade that away as the person learns the vocabulary. So I don't change the color of the buttons as much as I change the border.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yep, that's another way you can do that too. All right, well, if there's no more questions, yeah, and Tammy, for programming, again, you can go to our website. Yeah, feel free to email me if you have additional questions that I missed, or any other questions. Be happy to help out. But yeah, thank you for staying on. I'm sorry that I went a little bit over. Thanks to everyone for coming, and you should get an email follow-up with those links to the materials if you missed them. So, all right.